Hello and welcome to For the Love of Truth. I'm called Adrian. Today, I wanted to share a conversation I had with author Ludwig Gartz, where he explains how the high finance is the control mechanism for our enslavement, and how that is gradually coming to an end with the collapsing deep state and people's breaking free of the mind controlling mass media. And he explains how the enslavement and the road to freedom is laid out in symbolic form in The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm going to read you an excerpt from his free summary book, which I will link to in the description of this podcast. The high finance, symbolized as Sauron, rule this world through their control of money, symbolized as the One Ring, through the deep state, symbolized as the King of the Ringwraiths, and by controlling our minds through the media, symbolized as Minas Morgul. In the symbolism of the Orc War in Minas Morgul, all three of these are interwoven. The high finance control the Bank of International Settlements in Basel, and the central banks, including the Chinese, Russian, and American Federal Reserve Bank. They own the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, BlackRock, and Vanguard, and in this way is the majority owner of the largest corporations on Earth. With their control of money, the high finance dominate the corporations and the billionaires. And with money, deep state and media, they also dominate the governments of this earth. The dialectic with which the high finance rule the world consists of capitalism and communism. For the automatic redistribution brought about by capitalism, which gives rise to ever larger corporations, conglomerates, cartels, and monopolies, they extol socialism and communism as the solution. For the enslavement brought about by communist dictatorship, they extol capitalism as the great freedom, liberalism, libertarianism. As long as the vast majority of people are inclined to one of these two sides, right or left, we cannot escape this dialectic prison. The deep state are organized in two blocks, pretending to the world that they are competing, while in reality, the theatre thus staged is controlled by the high finance. To ensure that people cannot escape the dialectic with which the high finance rule, the Western Bloc is set up so that the corporations and billionaires are more powerful than the governments. See the power of Bill Gates, George Soros, Jeff Bezos, or Elon Musk. And the Eastern Bloc is set up so that the governments are more powerful than the billionaires stroke oligarchs. See especially China and Russia. For example, the high finance can advertise in the alternative media that Putin's government is taking on the oligarchs who step out of line and will not put up with anything from Western capitalists. However, it is the high finance alone that determines whether the corporations stroke billionaires are more powerful than the government, or the government is more powerful than the corporations stroke oligarchs. Without the high finance in the background, the billionaires in the West would not be more powerful than governments. And without the high finance in the background, the governments in Russia and China would not be more powerful than the billionaires stroke oligarchs. So with that as a setup for this discussion, I thought you'd really enjoy having a listen to what I talked about with Ludwig. And remember, you are amazing. And I'm looking forward so much to speaking to you in the next episode. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye. Ludwig, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join me and to have what I'm sure will be a very interesting discussion.
Well, thank you for having me, and let's see. Yes, it should be interesting, I think.
Okay, all right. You sent me a very interesting document which gave me a great overview of what we're going to be talking about. And I was wondering whether that might be something I could share with people via the show notes, if you will.
Yes, yes, yes. I forgot to include when I sent that you can feel free to share it as widely as you wish. And
I appreciate that.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that being the case, perhaps I'll hand the floor over to you and you can just start to describe using the symbolism of the Lord of the Rings, how that applies to where we currently find ourselves in our life experience.
That's a very small and a very big question. Yes, because people who have uh, dealt with the world of Tolkien more thoroughly, they know that Tolkien made some statements as to that there is no deeper meaning in what he says.
Mm-hmm.
And I just found when I worked my way into it that that's just not true. I mean, it's so full of,
Yeah.
maybe the wrong wording, deeper meaning, that there is no analogies to our world.
Yeah.
So that there is no, people thought they saw fascism in there and this and that. And he said there is no such thing. And I found that the whole symbolism is deeply, deeply spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
It's just full of spiritual meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing I found is that as each single figure carries a specific meaning, and different figures acting together through a certain event, that there are consciousness processes that are being described by what he's writing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I began to interpret these processes, what is actually happening there. And then eventually I started to compare the processes with our history and thought, well, are there historical events you could compare them to?
Mm-hmm.
And then I found that that was very well the case, and there was even a chronological order in his events and in our history.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, after like 3 or 4 such instances, then I thought, well, maybe the whole thing, maybe the entire thing is, even going back all the way to the Silmarillion, maybe this entire thing is a spiritual history of mankind, or of a certain part of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
From the beginnings, we were here, right? Because he starts with a creation story, and then there are conflicts, and then there are certain unresolved conflicts. There are events where things are being stopped, like the storm of Lavala on Middle Earth, where the problems are just being stopped, not resolved in Middle Earth, but stopped from Oman. And then another case where Sauron is defeated, but the One Ring is not destroyed, which also shows there was a certain level of problem solving, but there were many things that remained unresolved in our history. And everything that happened in the past, and let's say the problems that happened in the past and that remained unresolved, stay in the collective subconscious mind and still wait to be solved, still wait for healing. Mm-hmm. And in a way, everything is coming to a head in our time. Mm-hmm. And he's showing those processes that remained ill, that remained unresolved. And so that we have an understanding, what is it actually that needs healing?
Yeah.
And there's different things on different levels. It's because the human consciousness is very complex, and the entire symbolism that Tolkien has is a very thorough, very detailed description of the human mind, with all its levels, with all its parts, with all also the whole problem in duality, the egos, the problems created by ego, and you see, it's in a way, it's very complex because the human consciousness is complex, and you have this level, the spiritual level, where you see the consciousness, and then you have the extrapolation where you see, well, what's happening in our world. There's always these two levels. Mm-hmm. There's what's going on in the consciousness, and what can you conclude what is going on in the world from that, on that basis. Mm-hmm. So basically, what happened, the particular story from the Lord of the Rings, if we confine to that, because that in itself is already very, very complex.
Mm-hmm.
It refers, from my interpretation, it refers to a development that has been going on for around 700 years. Because there was a time that's been symbolized in Tolkien's work by the absence of the One Ring,
Mm-hmm.
which was up until the High Middle Ages, when we had financial systems that were that included a mechanism that the wealth that was being created was distributed in a just manner.
Mm-hmm.
And those systems, they collapsed due to the rising of greed,
Mm-hmm.
basically. So there were monarchs who circulated what is called bracteates. I don't know if you ever heard of the word.
No.
They was mostly in Central Europe, basically in the German-speaking area, but also outside. And there was money that had a money tax, which was charged every like 2 or 3 years, when the monarchs called in the money, and you had to give everything back, and you received 9 new ones for 10 old ones.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that he kept was the tax that everybody had to pay.
Mm-hmm.
So, and everybody knew, well, this is the way that money is being circulated. So there's no need in hoarding the money, because if you hoard everything, and then the moment of taxation comes,
Mm-hmm.
you just have to pay tax. So it's better to either invest it wisely, see what projects you can finance, or to lend it away tax-free, interest-free. Sorry, interest-free. So in that way, you had a credit system that worked without interest
Mm-hmm.
and created a very general prosperity throughout the High Middle Ages, with no real differences between the class. There were classes, like, of course, there was the aristocracy, but there was no real difference in wealth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's lots of reports that simple people, craftsmen and farmers, they just ate with silver cutlery just like everybody else. So there was a really well distributed wealth
Mm-hmm.
for a long time. And then greed occurred with the monarch. I mean, there was another system that was used by the early Templars. They had a kind of what you call a wandering interest
Mm-hmm.
that went along with the money, which had the same effect, that which had to be paid regularly. So it made no sense to hoard that, to hoard those. What were they called? They were called like credit letters.
Mm-hmm.
And the effect was again to give money away interest free, so that many projects could be financed interest free. So there was no redistribution, there was no concentration of capital as we have seen ever after the collapse of those systems.
Yeah.
No, and like in, what I can see from the symbolism is all the problems we've had since, or that successively occur, go back to this change in consciousness with the upcoming greed, and the change in the monetary system that now reflected this change in the consciousness.
Yeah.
Because the interest money that we've had since then serves the greed of certain people at the expense of all those who work. And it creates many things, like 9 different things, which in my books I explain more thoroughly, which is basically the 9 ring wraiths that Tolkien describes. And the 1 ring is our monetary system. On the material level, it all has also the level of consciousness, as I said, which makes it a bit complex. But if we go to the physical level, there's the monetary system, the 9 effects, and one of these effects is the automatic redistribution of wealth. So you have an automatic impoverishment of the working people and an increasing need of money, because you have a lack of money and an increasing need of money, and that creates compulsion for the economy to grow. We know that from politics, that they say, well, is there a problem? Well, the economy must grow. The economy must grow. The economy must grow. Because this redistribution keeps creating the problem that ordinary people do not have enough money in the system. And all they know is, well, the economy has to grow. So the first effect you then saw was that, from what I see and what also the symbolism of Tolkien suggests, is the first big effect was the onset of colonialism, because there was a lack of money being created in Europe among the ordinary people, and the solution was, well, let's conquer the world, let's get colonies, exploit them, and then we have enough, right? The other thing that was being created is that the monarchs in Europe started to take on loans which they had to pay interest for, and they created an ever-growing thirst for money because of that. And they started to try and tax even the clerical world and their own aristocracy to get enough money for the loans they had taken. And so they had to enforce their power to get all these taxes, and that created absolutism. So the time of absolutism, the time of colonialism, both go back to the change in the monetary system, right? And also, of course, this absolutism created a rift between the monarchs and the general aristocracy, who didn't want to pay that many taxes. And of course, the money lenders, who were the only profiteers of all this, who were in the background, they exploited those conflicts that occurred between societies and the monarchs, and particularly also between the aristocracy and the monarchs. And eventually, that was the driving factor on creating the democracies that we today have. Because they found democracies much more useful to rule over the people than the monarchs.
It's still ruling people.
Huh?
It's still ruling the people.
Yeah, and it's an invisible rule, because it's a rule through the money. You see that we are being ruled by the money, but and you can guess that there are people behind the system who profit from it. But they themselves keep themselves invisible, which is, I mean, this small group of people is Sauron. Everybody knows the big evil in the Lord of the Rings, and they are invisible. They are the all-seeing eye, so they see everything, they know everything. I mean, they have set up the total spy system to know everything from everybody on this planet. And they are invisible themselves. That's that symbolism. Everybody understands. A big brother watching you, everybody understands that.
Well, they even have the symbol on the dollar bill, don't they?
Yeah, they even have it there. So it's quite easy to see. And this whole process that then came was, on one level, they took more and more control of this world, of the physical level of this world. But that goes along with spiritual decline, because the collective the consciousness of men was getting darker and darker. In the sense, darkness means selfishness. It became more and more selfish and self-centered. And in fact, it is the selfishness and unawareness in the collective consciousness that they use to rule over us. on the physical level, let's go through the physical level and then through the spiritual level, so we don't get mixed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happened on the physical level first, through the occurring greed, there was the just monetary system we had in the High Middle Ages collapsed. An interest system returned that was starting to automatically redistribute the wealth
Upwards.
created by the people to the top.
Yep.
So, and eventually in the course of, well, that was started in the early 14th century, so 14th, 15th, 16th, less than 400 years, we had a new high finance, a small group of people of super rich.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment they took control was the moment basically of the founding of the Bank of England in 1694.
Mm-hmm.
Because they took control of the English king. They took control of the Commonwealth, and from here they started to take control of the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first reoccurrence of Sauron, which is one instance in the story where Gandalf sees Sauron has come back.
Mm-hmm.
And coming back means the reign that Sauron had in the past, the last reign he had in the past, was ancient Rome, that was ruled also by an invisible, hidden high finance, by a group of a few families who controlled the monetary system,
Mm-hmm.
and who are not even mentioned in the history books. Yeah, because they remained invisible to the end.
Yeah.
And how that ended and everything's also in his books, but that would go too far now. But so he reoccurred. So we had financial system, unjust financial system coming, a high finance coming that was starting to exploit the whole of mankind.
Mm-hmm.
Then they had a network of, by the way, to refer to the symbolism of Tolkien, so people may wonder. I talked about colonialism and absolutism. The absolutism is symbolized by those who know Tolkien's books, is symbolized by Smaug the dragon. Because he conquers Erebor, the mountain of Erebor, and chases away the dwarves who live there. And the mountain of Erebor is one aspect of what I call the nineness, which is the 9 aspects of the human mind, which has 3 energetic. There's an energetic mind with 3 layers. There's a mental mind with 3 layers, and there's a spiritual mind with 3 layers. And the energetic mind, one of these layers is our sense of being supplied for in life, being provided for. And that aspect is symbolized by the Erebor mountain, and the dwarfs there represent, I call it the self-healing powers that we have to bring this part of our mind into balance. And that self-healing power is selfless sharing. If we have a sense of selfless sharing in a community, then everybody feels taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
But if that sense disappears and everybody fends for themselves, that creates a sense of lack.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened through absolutism, because as I said, the kings had to impose higher and higher taxes to get the money they owed to the moneylenders. And that destroyed the sense of selfless sharing that had been there throughout the Middle Ages, mm-hmm. or the High Middle Ages at least. And that is symbolized by the spread of the dwarves who were chased away. And so we have the symbol for absolutism is the dragon,
And
because
the
the
dragon
dragon,
had all the gold as well, didn't it?
yeah, the dragon stands for fear and terror. Is a symbol of fear and terror because he strikes fear into everybody. And that is the fear that the monarchs had to strike into their people in order to take their money away. The people had to be afraid of them to allow him to take their money.
Mm.
Right? And the treasure he sits on, well, that's also the spiritual level of it, because there are many stories where dragons sit on treasures. Right? Many old sagas and fairy tales where dragons sit on treasures. That is basically the symbolism that when our mind is ruled by fear, all the qualities, all the talents that we have, they do not come to fruition because we are too afraid to live who we are. Mm-hmm. And to make use of the qualities and the talents that we really have to contribute to a good life for everybody else.
Yeah, and so symbolically that's represented that the fear is controlling all of that because it's hoarding it, if you will.
Yeah, it's holding it because we don't get to it.
Yep. Yeah.
You talk to people, you have that, and then tell them, why don't you live it? Well, I'm too afraid.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the dragon controlling us and keeping the treasure at a point where nobody has anything of it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so then the high finance, so the money lenders, they started to, they have always been running secret societies. Mm-hmm. To do things that nobody knew that they were doing them. And they eventually used these secret societies, particularly the Freemasons, as we know, which they had, how do you call it, taken over or undermined in the 1700s. And they used these secret societies. Basically, many of the aristocracy was organized in those secret societies, like in the Freemasons, to see how can we further our rights and go against what the king is doing. And eventually they used those secret societies to stop the power of the monarchs and create democracies which they control from the onset. Mm-hmm. And this taking control of the societies, taking control of the political systems through secret societies and their doings, like with blackmail and murder and whatever they do. That's symbolized in the story of the Witch King of Angmar, who leads a long war against the kingdom of Arnor, where Arnor is also one of the three kingdoms of men, which is the mental level, the three layers of our mental level, where you have Rohan, which is the area of self-esteem, appreciation, the value that we feel. Then then Gondor, on the other hand, is the law, the sense of justice that we have in the law and the rules in society, the integrity of people. Mm-hmm. And Arnor is the sense of possibility that we have, or the sense of power, the sense of sovereignty. And the Witch King, the war of the Witch King against Arnor symbolizes these centuries where the money lenders slowly took control of all the European countries by controlling their monarchs and eventually also abolishing monarchies. And the means they use, which were really criminal means. I mean, I don't know if you have read, have you read anything of Tolkien? You don't know the story of the Witch King of Angmar.
Since we spoke last time, I have bought the full 50-something hour audio series. I'm going to listen to that.
Wow, yeah, well, I do that while driving.
Yep.
That's that's a good pastime when you drive a car.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he uses, what does he use? He uses the black neurons, he uses trolls, he uses, I mean, that's symbolizing all the methods they
Yeah.
use to get control, to get power over all countries.
Yeah.
But basically, it was already in the 18th century, already
And
before
just,
the
if I may
French
just
Revolution.
interject there,
Yeah.
there's a good book called The Confessions of an Economic Hitman, which will give you some ideas of some of the methodology that's currently employed.
Yeah, I mean that's going on in the 20th
Yeah.
centuries, where
Yeah.
since the 20th century, it is completely clear that we are being ruled by criminals. I mean,
Yes.
by
Yeah.
complete criminals.
Mm-hmm.
There's no. I don't know of any government that acts in on behalf of its people, really.
No, they act on
They're
behalf of the
just,
corporations.
yeah, sure. They are our governments are our enemies. I mean, that's very clear. Um, so they had that. So the the human mind has four layers. No, three layers. I mean, or you could say the soul, the human soul, the eternal soul, has four sheaths when it comes to duality. When we are born as a human being, the fourth sheath being the physical body, which is not a level of our consciousness, but the other three form our consciousness, which is you have, from the perspective of the soul, you have that spiritual layer, you have the mental layer, and you have the energetic layer. And when the consciousness is darkening, it's the darkness is kind of penetrating from the outside, from the energetic through the mental to the spiritual. And when even the spiritual layer is in darkness, then people have absolutely no more control over themselves. They're completely being ruled by outer forces, which is basically the type of consciousness we went into throughout the 20th century. And this darkening is symbolized, and being ruled by this monetary system is the darkening of the energetic layer, because the darkening there means we no longer live in a sense of sharing with others,
Mm-hmm.
but we live in the sense of, how do I get enough money? How can I afford a good life? How do I build up assets that allow me to enjoy some luxuries and do this and this and that?
Mm-hmm.
That's the focus, not the focus of living, being surrounded by people who share a sense of abundance that we all live in.
Mm-hmm.
That focus got lost.
Mm-hmm.
So that's represented, that when that was lost, this financial system took over. Then on the mental level, well, that's basically living the sense that we need to feel that we live in a just world and that we have all the possibilities to live the life we want to live. And that was kind of destroyed by the creation of the deep, you could call it the deep state, this network of secret societies that took control of our governments. We can call it the deep state. I mean, you can
Mm-hmm.
give it any other term, but that's the common term. Which means this deep state being there, and the high finance having this level of control over the mental part of our mind, means, well, we can see we no longer live in a just world.
Yeah.
We no longer live in a world of possibilities, because there are few people who have all the possibilities, and the rest has to earn the money that that has to be given to them.
Yeah.
That's and even our legal system is just keeping that injustice going.
Well, it's been designed to do just that. It's not been
Yeah,
designed for any other purpose other than to support this whole criminal system.
yeah, exactly. I mean, our legal system has become a part of this crime. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Well, I've lately seen a list of the numbers of the percentages of people in Germany, uh, the judges, the mayors, and the school directors who are Freemasons, and the percentages are somewhere in the 80s, 90s. It's like they control everything.
Yeah. Yep.
It must be similar in England.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, I'm absolutely sure it is, because you see all sorts of what you would consider to be an injustice going on, but it's just a normal function of the way those societies work.
Yeah, yeah. So if you don't sell your soul to them in a way, you don't get to any high position.
That's right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So all that is in the symbolism, and so we had that part. So the democratization only started when the high finance had made sure that they would have absolute 100% total control over all democracies that would emerge. Yeah. Then they came. And so they had this energetic layer through the control of the money system. Then they had this mental layer through the deep state they created that gave them total control of the governments. So, and the last thing, the spiritual level, is they got control of that in the early 20th century, actually through the First World War, where they created a level of fear in the collective consciousness that allowed them to create systems of mind control that make people believe they have their own opinions, while they only have the opinions that
given to them.
want. Yeah, and to this day, it's like that for the vast majority. Although we are now in an awakening process, there is a critical. I think we have reached a critical number of people who have by now escaped that mind control.
Yeah.
And to a point where they cannot reverse that process. They cannot re-establish the level of mind control they used to have for over 100 centuries. So it started in the First World War. It now globally lasted over 100 years, but they're now losing it.
Yep.
And the fact that they are losing the mind control also poses an immediate threat to the mental layer, so to the deep state itself.
Yeah.
Because we now start to see what they are doing.
Yeah.
So they can't do something, commit some crime, and say it was them.
Yeah.
Commit a crime here and say it was them.
Yeah.
And then you have parties fighting one another who are actually both innocent but believe the other is guilty.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the kind of game they've always played. That's in that way they started 2 world wars from the background and made those people who they considered their enemies kill one another to the millions.
Yeah, and profited massively at the same time.
And make them kill and profit.
Yeah,
and that's what they're still trying to do now. I mean, if you see in the world, they are really trying to trigger the Third World War. Yeah. So they're trying to make Russia and China attack the West, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they would love to have hundreds of millions of dead people again.
Yep.
But as I see it, the awakening has come to a point where when you see the Russian people, how they try to escape going to the military, people just don't want this war.
No.
I mean, it's clear that everybody, if they got this war, the US would be the loser, Russia would be the loser, China would be the loser, all of Europe, we would all be losers.
Yeah,
and those who started the war from the background, they would win.
That's right. Yeah. And by the way, this meeting we're going to end in about a minute, and then just start it again because of this upgrade thing on Zoom, which I've not upgraded. But what I was going to say was to people, it's really important that you, if you can, wrap your head around the idea that a war will only exist if you participate in it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you refuse to participate in it, like the Russian people are doing, because they don't want to join in, there can be none, because all of these crimes that are committed by people like you and I that are
Yeah,
going along with instructions that have been given to people that are stupid because they don't realize it's being fed to them by these controllers in the background that are benefiting from
yeah,
it at our loss.
exactly. And the entire deep state, as powerful as it is, it depends on one thing that we do. It depends on us obeying. If we
That's
do
right,
not obey,
compliance.
if we do not comply, they collapse.
Yep.
And that's actually what the symbolism is showing that we can continue with, because according to the symbolism, the next thing happening is, well, the deep state, this World War III will collapse. It won't happen, and the deep state will collapse.
So do you remember we were talking about the coming
Yeah.
collapse of the deep state?
Yes, and before we continue with that, there's one small detail for those who just refer to Tolkien's world. This moment that started everything that we suffer from today was the moment of recurring greed. Is symbolized by Deagle, the hobbit Deagle finding the One Ring, and the hobbit Smeagol killing Deagle and taking hold of the One Ring. And Deagle symbolizes a researching mind who wants to know new things, and that is, in this researching mind found this possibility of creating a money system that would make you richer and richer at the expense of others.
Mm-hmm.
And Smeagol stands for the desire that you want the things that you see. So the desire, wow, that would make me rich and powerful. That desire took over and took charge of the One Ring. So this greed for money and power took over this re-emerging monetary system, and that started everything after. So with the ring finding, all the problems in the Lord of the Rings started.
Mm-hmm.
So that I didn't explain, so done that now, so we can come back to the deep state that will collapse because they are losing the mind control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they try to use this mind control and the coercion that they are applying to us through the deep state to get a Third World War triggered. But if we do not obey, if we do not comply, it won't get to that, and the deep state will collapse. And I expect this collapse for the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's becoming plain and obvious. Even the people that don't want to see what's going on can start to see the level of manipulation and control that's happening.
Yeah. And you see more and more things coming into the mainstream through journalists who thought, well, I never thought about, where you see they never entirely knew what was going on. They're now starting to realize things that they then start to talk about. They are not supposed to talk about, but they always thought they are somehow living in a just system. They now realize they don't.
Mm-hmm. That they've had a hand in promoting.
And that they were part of this.
Yeah.
And
Well, they are the major part of the mind control, the media.
Yeah. Yeah, and some are conscientious enough to talk about it.
Yeah.
What they now realize.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then well, those those who know the symbolism, there is this sudden end of the King of the Ring, the Witch King of Angmar that we talked about, the secret societies. When Arnor was destroyed, when the kingdom of Arnor was destroyed, which means when the moment was that all the European countries had lost their sovereignty to the moneylenders, they were no longer sovereign in the 18th century. So it's about a quarter of a millennium ago. It's been a long time already that we're no longer sovereign. Mm-hmm. So when that was done, he went to Sauron in Mordor and transformed into the King of the Ringwraith. And the King of the Ringwraith is that symbol for the deep state that controls everything with its suppressing power and intimidation that doesn't allow anything to occur or to emerge that would be a threat to the old system. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this one is this one is being killed, and the woman, the figure who kills him is the princess Eowyn of Rohan, who is a symbol of selflessness, so selfless service or selfless commitment for a better world. And she's that symbol for all the efforts that so many people make to stop this cruel system that is treating us just as slaves, and not complying, not obeying to it. And the symbolism says that that will end. And what happens just before the death of the King of the Ringwraith is just before there is Frodo's and Sam's escape from Minas Morgul. So Frodo is a symbol for our common sense, and Sam, who goes with him, is a symbol for habitual optimism, just to make being optimistic a habit. He's always, well, Master Frodo, we have to go on. It's like, no matter how difficult it gets, he says, well, we have to go on. We have something to do. We have something to achieve. Let's get it done. So there's always this optimism. Even if you think, well, we never get there, this thought, will we ever be free as a mankind? Well, who knows? But if we don't try, we will never will. So we just go on. We just go on. As long as we can, we go on.
And by the way, just to interject there, if people don't think that you are in a slavery system, try and go against what the rules are and see how long it is before they pop you into a cage. Which is called a prison. It's still a cage.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't take long. No. There's so many things you aren't allowed in Germany to say, that even on the basis of our history, if you say certain things about certain people, you will end up in prison very, very quickly. Yeah. And so Minas Morgul, I mean, the symbolism goes very deep. There is 7 places in Middle-earth where the old Númenóreans brought their Palantiri, the seeing stones, to. And Minas Ithil, that later transformed into Minas Morgul, is one of them. And Ithil and the stone there is really a symbol of the human heart and of the mental level, which is basically the clairvoyance that we have from our heart, from seeing with our heart. And Minas Ithil was the first place to be conquered by darkness when darkness became stronger, which means that the return of fear, of people being ruled by fear, the first thing that is gripped is the heart. That the love of the heart is covered, and the courage that we have there and the self-confidence that we have here is all covered by fear, and that the love turning into fear is symbolized by Minas Ithil turning into becoming Minas Morgul, a place of terror, place of fear and terror. It's very similar to the dragon because it's also the symbol for fear, but in Tolkien's words, it's also a symbol for the mind control that is exercised by means of fear, by striking fear into people. Because that's what the media are constantly doing. They're constantly creating fear for all kinds of things. So Frodo, who stands for our common sense, finally escaping Minas Morgul means that we reach that critical level of escaping the mind control. And to my, I'm always kind of allocating these events to our to where we are in our time, and in my perception, this escape happened this year, but in the middle of the year. We are beyond this mind control, and what we are seeing is a scary world, but it's also the death throes, the death throes of the global deep state that we are seeing. This deep state is desperately fighting to stay in control.
Yeah.
Because we are no longer complying, or a critical number of people is no longer complying, and every single human being can make a big difference.
Yeah.
Because the critical level that the critical mass that we need to bring the global deep state to a collapse is not 50%. It's just maybe 10% of the people.
Yeah, I think it's probably around 10% to change everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and we are getting very close to that percentage.
Yeah. Yeah.
As I'm seeing it, because yeah, they invest so much coercion, so much power to get this war going, and it doesn't seem to work because people just don't want. And if we have a firm commitment to peace, if we don't want, we want peace, we don't want to comply, then there's nothing they can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that will end, and then comes, according to the symbolism, what is coming actually is. So if you compare that to the human mind, it means that if we escape mind control, it means we have control of our own spiritual level again. So if we don't even think our own thoughts, if we don't even think our own thoughts, then we do not have ourselves, and that was the condition we were in during this period of mind control since First World War I and up until this year, I would say. So it means we are just regaining our sense of who we are by starting to think our own thoughts again, and not the thoughts given to us by certain people.
Yeah, someone used to. I've been saying for a while as well that, I don't care. I'm not trying to get people to think like me. I'm just trying to get people to think again for themselves. I don't care what they think as long as they are thinking. That's the bit that concerns me the most.
That's what we need. When people come to me and say, well, he says that, and he says that, and he says that, and I don't know what I should believe. And I say, it's not about what you should believe.
Yeah.
Think for yourself. Use your own mind. You have a capacity to think logically.
Yep. Apply it.
To have the capacity to really make use of your common sense. Think your own thoughts and come to your own conclusion, and don't say, well, I have to come in line with what he says, or I have to come in line with what he says, because what he says, he's so clever, he's probably right.
But this also ties in with this part of the deep state control is this externalization of power that you have to go to someone else is an authority in your life because it's established itself as that. And when you start to think for yourself, you become the author, the authority in your own life. And that's so important.
Exactly. That's author authority.
Yeah.
You are the author, become the author of your own thoughts.
Yeah.
Yes. So you become your own authority.
Yeah. You write your own story.
Well, very well worded in that way. Yeah. Exactly. So, but they control us on all. They used to control us on all three levels. So they have lost the spiritual level. They are losing the mental level when we regain our sovereignty. And I expect when that happens, also when the deep state collapses, I expect a certain renaissance of true values. That people come to their senses and think, well, what is really important in my life? What do I really want to live for? What is worth living for? And get their own integrity straight. And that's what you see in the Lord of the Rings when the King of the Ringwraith dies. And there are two other things also, that Aragorn is coming back to the battle, and then the whole thing turns, and what seemed like a desperate, hopeless battle against the forces of evil then turns, and the battle on the Pelennor fields is being won. And that symbolizes really an ethical renaissance of the people. regaining of integrity, a regaining of a certain level of sovereignty also. And if that happens, there's not that much that the high-fi, but Sauron is still going on. I mean, he's still there, and he's still trying to get the One Ring. So the quest for liberating us won't be over after the end of the deep state.
Yeah.
Because what the high finance still have, they still will have the control of a monetary system. And this system is on the spiritual level, it's fed by materialism, and the word, the symbol for materialism is Mordor. You will have heard.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Frodo and Sam have to cross Mordor to get to the Mount Doom. So that's the existence of the One Ring and Mordor is the two things that keep Sauron in power then.
Mm-hmm. And
Which
by the way,
that,
if I might just interject, for materialism, look at every single advert everywhere in any kind of media. It's all about consumption and materialism and nothing else.
Yeah, it's sucking us in. Do you want this? Do you want that? Do you want to enjoy this? Do you want to have that?
Yeah, and
that's all the values.
Yeah,
that's all the values presented to us.
Yeah, that's right. And it's buying stuff you don't want with money you've not got to impress people you don't even like.
it's that thing, yeah. And the whole thing is a total trance, or it's a total hypnosis.
Yeah.
So, and there's lots of talk in the alternative media now, or even in the mainstream media, that we are heading towards such a complete impoverishment that we won't even have enough to eat. We won't have anything. Well, that's one thing they planned to get our life circumstances worse, but I think it won't be too harsh, because I think they want to get this deterioration to be slow enough so that we stay hypnotized by the system. We stay hypnotized by trying to improve our situation by means of what the system has to offer us.
Yep.
If it becomes too abrupt, it will be like a cold shower, and we can, and then we can reorient, and that would be too dangerous for them. I think they will, just as it was very tough in the last decades, it will continue like that. And this tough dragging on is Frodo with this ring, which is so heavy that he can hardly move.
Mm-hmm.
So the system will overall try to make our life difficult, hard, but with a slow deterioration of things getting worse and worse, to ultimately offer us, well, we have a solution for you. There's a majority of people now who don't even have a job. So we offer you an unconditional income. All you have to do is you have to have an account with for a digital currency, and then you get your thing. And then they want to lure us into this digital currency, abolish the cash, and then they have total control.
Yeah.
Well, the plan they have is quite clear.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't expect it to come too soon because of the resistance. They will have to make it slow in order to keep people hypnotized.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because if you shock someone, you can normally wake them up.
Yeah. If it becomes too shocking, people will understand too many things that happened.
Yeah.
And they will see that the system they are trying to hold on to is really their enemy. Yeah.
Isn't this a funny thing that people look to the thing that created the problem for the solution?
Yeah. That's our imprisonment.
Yes.
We make the problem. We want the problem that created the problems to be our solution, and that leaves no escape.
Yeah, and also you're so hypnotized that you want an external force. You want Trump. You want something to come along and save you. It's not going to happen. You are responsible for freeing your mind and yourself from this.
Yeah, and they might even take these figures and You know, this total dictatorship might come in the form of they are selling us a golden age.
Yeah.
Well, look, it's so difficult. Yeah. Well, we take care of you. You get this and you get that, and you have all kinds of amenities. You just sign here.
Yeah.
you, you just sign here,
Yeah.
and we will we'll take care of all your problems.
Yeah. You're signing your
And
soul away.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're giving all the power to them
Yeah.
who promise you that they will have a just system for
Yeah.
you, but it will be just only as long as they have to be just. And then
Yeah.
when they see now they can change it, they will change it, and they will be harsh.
That's right. And another really important point that comes from that is they require you to willingly do this. They will coerce you, they will bully you, they will use force, but it's up to you to commit because it's you they want. It's your energy, your soul. They want everything,
Yeah, it's your
which goes back to
agreement.
the
I
compliance
agree.
thing.
It's our compliance, our
Yep.
agreement they want.
Yep. Yep.
And then they can say, well, you wanted it that way?
That's right.
You wanted it that way? It's not us. We are not the evil ones.
Yeah.
You wanted it.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and that and it looks, according to the symbolism, it looks like it's gonna be a tough process for most people
Yeah.
because there's only one solution. There's only one real solution. That's waking up.
Yeah.
Waking up and taking responsibility, taking charge of your own life,
Mm-hmm.
and acting, not becoming an adult and acting like an adult.
Yeah. Yep.
That's the only solution.
Yeah.
And letting go of this dependencies and this victimhood. We see ourselves as victim of the system, which we don't have to be if we take charge. When we take responsibilities, then we are not victims.
Mm-hmm.
And blaming the system and seeing ourselves as victims is a very lazy way of, well, I don't have to do anything because they are so evil and they are to be blamed and they have to change and I don't have to do anything.
Yeah. I can see that ending well.
So you can blame up your whole life as long as you want, but it won't change anything.
Yeah. Well, this is the other thing. If you simply take responsibility for everything, including things
Yeah,
which have been done in your mind to you, that
yeah,
means that you have the power to correct everything. Because if you're responsible for anything and everything, then you can fix
yeah,
anything and everything in your own mind and in your own life.
yeah. And that seems to be the basic and the most difficult thing. And that comes back to the One Ring, which is all about, because the original symbolism is that Sauron wrought the One Ring in Mount Doom, or in the abysses, in the embers
Mm.
of Mount Doom. And the embers of Mount Doom are a symbol for our underlying sense of guilt that we have taken from the time we have left unity. In a way, we created this sense of separation, this ego, in our sometime back in our soul history that triggered the whole thing that we went through in our evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And this separation from God created a sense of guilt that will be there as long as we are in this sense of, as we are keeping ourselves in this sense of separation.
Mm-hmm.
And the ring that is wrought in this sense of guilt is the projection of guilt or the blame, this blaming others. That's the One Ring. Others are wrong. Others are to be blamed. We are the good ones. Others are the bad ones. We have the proper religion. Others are non-believers. We
Mm-hmm.
have the proper ideology. Others are Nazis or fascists or whatever you call them. This we have the truth and others are wrong.
Yep.
That's the One Ring.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Because
what a
that's
burden
not,
that was to carry.
yeah. Yeah, that is the real burden we carry. That's the burden we have to get rid of. And the only way to get rid of this is waking up, taking responsibility,
Yeah.
as all that we said. And so that's the original creation of the ego force, and that's also the mindset that allows elites to control us.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you only need to create two camps and tell the one camp, well, they are to be blamed for everything, and this is why. This is what they do wrong. This is what they do wrong. This is what stops you. And you tell them they are to be blamed for everything, and you have both sides in a blaming mind. Both sides can prove, well, it's really them,
Yeah.
and they can say it's really them, and both are stuck and can be controlled.
Yeah.
And all the elites have to do is tell them you are right, enforce your views onto them, and tell them, well, you are right, enforce your will onto them.
That's right. Yeah.
And then you control both
A better
sides.
word for elite, by the way, I think, given that what they are is predators, would be predators.
Yeah, elite is still, there's still a positive connotation to it, and there's nothing positive about them.
They're parasitic predators. That's it. They prey on you and I.
Predators are criminals, really.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Actually, the whole thing is a mafia system. I mean, we are being ruled by a mafia.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mafiosis, you could call them. But predators is good. Yeah, predators. The predators who like to consider themselves as elites.
Yeah, and because in my mind, if you're using the correct language to describe something, you can more accurately know what you're dealing with. Yeah,
it's better. Yeah, I
and
use
you treat them with caution too.
Yeah, I usually prefer to use a more neutral term of the high finance, because that shows, well, it's through money that they control us.
I agree with that. Yeah, I think high finances would be good.
Because it's a technical term, and it's a technical way of ruling that they have.
Oh, aye.
And so,
by the way, if you go along with the digital currency, it's going to get a lot easier to control you as well.
Much easier. I mean, if we agree to the abolishment of cash, that would be the end.
Yeah.
So by the time they really abolish cash, we have to have alternative systems how we provide for ourselves, so that we are not blackmailed into complying with that system.
Yeah. And that when you were talking before about how, they said, well, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, that I think will be the mechanism for doing it. The digital currency.
Yeah. They promise you all kinds of things, and they first create your problems.
Yeah.
And then they give you the solution for those problems that they have created.
Yeah.
And the solutions will be the nail in your own coffin.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a game being played out on many levels, isn't it?
Yeah. So, but if you see it on another level, if there are three, as I said, there are three levels of the human mind, but we are about to liberate the second level, which is a huge accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
Which is huge, because it means they only have this monetary system, and there are the reflection of the monetary system in the human mind is this blaming attitude.
Yeah.
Blaming and not taking responsibility. And because well, if you blame somebody, you tell them, well, it's your fault because now it's your task to correct everything, and I don't have to do anything.
Yep. Yep.
Right. And what the monetary system is, I give you a loan, and now you have to pay and to pay and to pay. And I have done all my duty by giving you a loan, because now I can take your money, and you have to do all the work.
Yep.
It's the same mechanism.
Yeah.
And what we need in this world is, I mean, the money, or the guilt projection, really splits us in two camps: those of predators and those of prey.
Yep.
Those who take the blame and try to work it off until they don't have to feel guilty. And those who keep blaming and putting pressure on others that they have to work off their arse to pay back the guilt they have incurred.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's this split: predators and prey. And then on the monetary system level, you actually have three camps. You have the small camp of the predators, of the mega predators called high finance. And then you have the camp of those who think the system is in their favor and those who think the system is bad for them. The monetary system is bad for them because they have to just keep paying and earn everything of it. So the kind of the loser camp is made into socialism, and those who think they profit is made into the capitalist camp, who think the system is in my favor. And these two camps are played off against one another.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but they're both two sides of the same coin. They're still the problem.
Yeah, because they're both in this blaming mind, because those who think they have gained some assets and some wealth so that they profit from this, they insist that the system is correct and that they can ask money from others for the things they lend. And those in the socialist camp, they are in this blaming thing that they say, well, the government has to set things right and the government has to create some kind of justice so that I'm taken care of.
Yeah.
So they refuse to really take responsibility of it. And these two sides are played off, and both sides will be losers in the end if that game comes to, if they succeed with this game. But I see that they will ultimately not succeed, because we're eventually going to wake up to being real humans and taking responsibility and creating the world that we really want to see.
Yeah.
And that moment is symbolized by the destruction of the One Ring, because then when the ring disappears, all the symbols for the negativity disappears, Sauron disappears, which means these predators who rule over us will disappear, and then we will be free. So that will be also, on the spiritual journey, mean that we have healed on the energetic level as well. The energetic level means that we have recreated our sense of sharing with the people around us and with the society around us. We no longer try to exploit anybody, and we no longer want that a government takes control who cares for justice, because we are capable of creating a just community for ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the goal. That is also in the symbolism. And that would be roughly a quick walk through the whole.
Well, I think, first of all, that was such an interesting summary, and thank you for that, because you captured a whole lot of information in a very straightforward way you discussed it. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I try to make it graspable somehow to get a quick picture. I mean, the book, the interpretation, the book with the interpretation of this whole story since ancient Rome is the Ring Annihilation, is a book of around 400 pages. So there's much more detail to this.
Okay, well, I will, if you will send me the links where people can get that, and to a website and your YouTube channel, I'll put all that in the show notes as well.
Yes, well, at this moment, you will have the Ring Wraith Annihilation, which is only the interpretation with respect to our time.
Yeah.
The next book that's coming up very soon is the Symbolism of Tolkien, with all the explanations of the individual figures and symbols in his world. And the next thing after that will then be the Ring Annihilation, which will take a few weeks from now on.
Okay, all right. It was really very interesting and eye-opening for me as well. I did watch the film since we last spoke, which is a poor interpretation, but at least it gave me more of a framework to work with.
Yeah, it's better to really, if you have the audiobooks with the complete reading, that's much better.
I've got those now, but I looked at that and went, I haven't got 50 hours between last week and this week to do that. So.
No, you need to buy a weekend house in the north of Scotland and go there every month, and then you have time while you drive a car.
Yeah. Well, I have a good old motorhome, so we do a lot of driving in that, so I could listen in there
Ah,
as
okay.
well
Oh, okay, good. Good.
because it doesn't go anywhere fast, but it does go everywhere. So.
Okay, that's good.
So if there was, I mean, you gave a lot of encouragement there, I think, to people about because I'm of the same mind as to where I see it going. Is there anything you could say to people? Because a lot of people will still be trapped in terrible fear right now.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the main problem. The main problem is fear and a sense of hopelessness that many people have, and
Mm,
also a blind anger that some people are in whenever they think of the predators we're being ruled by.
mm,
And yeah, it doesn't seem possible to change anything positively. But we have to keep reminding ourselves that what is happening in the outside world is a mere reflection of the collective mind,
mhm,
and we are one cell of that collective mind. And the only way to bring a positive change to that collective mind is that we bring this one cell that we are into balance,
mhm.
to help to find healing for ourselves, and to find and yeah, I mean, to find a way to get rid of this negativity,
Yeah.
to find uh, joy and hope instead of this hopelessness,
Mhm,
to find a state of saying, well, I'm a happy person,
mhm.
and irrespective of what anything that happens in the outside world, I'm happy, um, and I am full of confidence, and I am. You see, it's to create your mind in a positive state, because the only person in this world who can change that is yourself.
Yeah.
And of course, it is legitimate to get some help if you feel I'm so stuck in negativity. I just need some help. That's legitimate. But be aware of your own goals. That where do you want to be? And yeah, to create this. I mean, I want to live in a state of joy, in a state of love and compassion and confidence, and in a state of inner peace
Mhm.
and forgiveness. And I know it's my creation to be in that state,
Yeah.
and my responsibility to be in such a state, and that should be the goal. Make yourself that goal. And if you say, well, this is happening in the world, and this is happening in the world, and this is happening, and I cannot, it makes me so hopeless, and it makes me so scared, then stop feeding your mind with these things. I
Yeah.
mean, if you haven't already done so, stop watching television.
Mhm.
Or if you go into all these alternative channels that feed you with information on the threat of a world war,
Yeah.
or on all these negative things are going, then stop that.
Yeah.
If that just drags you down, stop it.
Yeah.
If you say, well, they are telling the truth, and I want to know what's going on. But if you see it's just dragging you down, and you can't bounce back from that, then don't see it, don't
Mhm.
read it.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself, take care of your own mind, take responsibility for your own mental and spiritual well-being.
Yeah.
That's the supreme duty that we have,
Mhm.
to bring ourselves into a positive state.
Mhm.
We not don't manage to do that if there's not much we can do in the world anyway.
Yeah.
This,
I would add something to that as well. That
yeah,
the physically doing stuff as well. To if you think, for example, there's a food shortage coming, do something to remedy that situation, because
that comes on top. Yes,
you're taking a physical positive action, and that
yeah,
demonstrates something to yourself as well, because it's a
yeah.
reflection outside of what you're then changing inside.
Sure. If you are afraid of a shortage coming, of some very difficult times coming, then, and you can't argue against that, then, well, then take precautions. Really
Yeah,
take care
yeah.
of having enough food in the
But
house.
that still comes
Yeah,
back to taking
yeah.
responsibility, because it's all a
Exactly. And
reflection of the
then,
same thing.
because the fear might not only be an intrinsic thing in your own mind, because there might be certain things from the outside which, realistically speaking, are real threats, and then you take responsibility for, well, if this comes, then what do I need?
Yeah.
What do I need? And then I take care of it, because now I'm still in a situation to take care of enough food, take care of enough of whatever else, heating and whatever else you need.
Yeah.
And
And if I might add one other thought as well, Ludwig, it's never underestimate your own resourcefulness, because you are a component in something much grander. You're an individual, you've got your own life to live, but you have access to so much creativity within and through yourself to get through anything, let alone this.
Yeah, because what we really are, and what also the human brain really is, the brain really is a receiver for universal consciousness and also for universal intelligence.
Yep.
And that can come in. So if we are open to that, and if we get ourselves, and that all comes down to getting ourselves into the right mindset, into the right positive mindset, to be open to that. And then
and fear cuts you off from that frequency as well. Fear cuts you off from that frequency.
Yeah, fear cuts us off from that. And then they, of course, they do all kinds of other stuff to cut us off from that. Don't get vaccinated, for instance. All these things. And see what you're eating and drinking and so on. But yes, we are a receiver cell of a universal consciousness that has all the solutions we need, and that has all the intelligence that we need to solve even the biggest problems.
Yeah, and you don't have to solve the problem. You just solve the component problem that you have become or you are part of.
Yeah. And you, by the laws of resonance, you just create a network with people who are like you, who are like-minded, and create a community who are mutually supportive. And we get through this.
Absolutely.
We'll get through this.
Absolutely. Ludwig, that was a very, very enjoyable conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very grateful that you replied to my request. Thank you very much. So I hope that some people now in the English-speaking world see the depth and the greatness of the symbolism of Tolkien.
Yeah,
and have become curious to read a bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and one other thing, by the way, symbolism is massively important, because everything the deep state does is symbolic. It's all symbolism, because that affects us. That affects right through our psyche. It's everything.
Yeah, because symbolism as such, many people think that symbolism is a bad thing, because what they see when they see what they are doing is they using it only in a negative manner all the time. But it can be used in a positive manner, and the ancient scriptures do use it in a positive manner, such as the fairy tales. Really, if the very old fairy tales, they are written in such a symbolic language that speaks to us, and they describe a specific problem in the human mind. And the happy end at the end is you go through a process, and then you come to the states of balance, or to the state of healing, and that is in the symbolism. And even if you don't exactly understand what this is about, if you read a fairy tale and let it work on you, it does something positive. And that's also what I felt when I read The Lord of the Rings. You go through this, and when everything is solved in the end, you kind of because you've really gone through something, even if you didn't understand what this all was really about.
Yeah, and that's why I think reading the books or listening to the books is more important than the movies as well, because it's your own internal journey, that rather than some interpretation that's being programmed to change something.
Yeah, and they create the pictures, and you should create the pictures for yourself. While reading.
Yeah,
you should not let anybody produce these pictures. No. Yeah, it's true. So, yeah.
Oh, what a pleasure. What I'll do is I will get this edited up over the next week, then I will send you copies that you can use as you see fit as well. I'll do an audio version as well.
I have an English YouTube channel with only very few videos that I made 3 years ago on the symbolism of Tolkien. And I will put it also there, and I see maybe get further videos there for there, and maybe we'll have another interview in some time. I
Oh,
don't
I
know.
would like that. Yeah, I would like that very much.
If you come up with some idea, or I come up, and
Yeah,
we just see if we can make another one.
that'd be marvelous. Thank you so much. You look after
Yeah.
yourself in the meantime.
Also to the viewers, if
Mm.
you have certain ideas, questions, or if you say, please talk about this and this and this and this, you can make your suggestions, and then we can see.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, fantastic.
Mm.
Ludwig,
Mm.
thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Speak to you soon.
Take, yeah. Take care.
Thank you.